Hello, my name is Tamara Kraker. I am a coach, facilitator, and educator on self-awareness and the Enneagram. And today I am joined by Marissa Naylor. Marissa is the marketing coordinator at the Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship, and she is the owner and lead photographer with Marissa Naylor Photography. Marissa is also an Enneagram 1. Welcome here.
Thank you.
I am very excited. You are our first Enneagram 1, and we are looking forward to hearing your perspective on some of these questions.
Yes. No, I'm very excited. When I learned my number, I was surprised, but I'll dig into that soon.
What a perfect segue. So, our first question, I would love to hear when you first learned your Enneagram number, what was it that made it click or what made it feel like it was probably your number?
I would say because I love control and I love power, but I love to adapt quickly.
Mhm.
So if something goes wrong in what I'm doing, or if I'm problem solving something, so as a marketer, things always go wrong. There's always something to adjust.
Mm,
I have to adapt quickly and problem solve quickly, but I also love to have control and know what I can do. And so, before like we met, I never knew what the Enneagram was. I always heard about this word, and I'm like, okay, like what is this thing everyone talks about? But when I actually saw the numbers, saw the qualities and everything under that number, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And it's funny because when I told my husband that same day, he was like, I could have told you that before you even went there. And I was like, that's hilarious. So I think that it was those three things that stood out to me, but also
mhm,
just really feeling like I want to do it all. And so
mhm.
I never obviously like boundaries and setting some like expectations and that is important, but I want to accomplish as much as I can and do as much as I can, which
Mhm.
is what I think number ones do from my understanding. So when I heard that I wasn't surprised, but I was also like very happy to have clarity of like what the
Sure.
Enneagram is.
Well, part of the self-awareness journey is there has to be like an awareness of your qualities, right? And that's honestly a lot of people when they come to the Enneagram, they just get a chance to see what they've known all along.
Yeah.
It's written down so that you can look at it and you can go, okay, this is serving me well. This might not be serving me so well. What am I going to do to make some shifts here?
Yeah, I would also say it really brought me to terms of like where negative stuff comes from. So, as an athlete on Team Canada for 10 pin bowling and competitive golfer, there's a lot of emotions that happen in individual sports like that. And I think learning that also helped from a sporting standpoint. And I
Sure.
remember actually telling my coaches, I'm like, hey, I know why this is now. I didn't know why that was before.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that really clicked too, and just seeing how and where those things come from. Because when you're on the bowling alley competing for a team medal, you don't know where those emotions come from. You expect or hope to know where they come from, but you
Yeah.
actually don't know where they really come from. And I think talking through that was also just like a mini therapy session. I think I told you that before.
Well, that's
It's
so
yeah,
good. I love
yeah.
how you explain that because sometimes it really is like there's a difference between experiencing something and like knowing what you're experiencing. And that
Yeah.
language that the Enneagram provides can be such a window into exactly what you said yourself, but also communicating that to others.
Well, and I think it just also helps with your teammates. Like in the office, in a bowling alley, on a golf
Hmm.
course, like you're gonna have a team at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it's small or large, it doesn't even matter because
Yeah.
your attitude impacts your team. And so knowing what your attitude is and how that impacts and what you're doing
Yeah.
is just super nice because it ties it all together. So
Totally.
I think, yeah, learning that was just really helpful for many things, not just work as well.
Awesome. I love that. That's so
Yeah.
good to hear. Thank you, Marissa. So, what would you say? What are some of the environments that you think bring out the best in you?
I would say anything with a team. So at the Stu Clark Center for Entrepreneurship, we have a small team. There's five of us. But because it's a small team, we do so many different things. It really is nice because you can bounce those ideas off of people really quickly. And so there's a lot of different Enneagrams in that office, I'm sure.
Mm,
And so knowing just their personalities and how to like move those ideas around or like what we want to do, what we're trying to say, just stuff like that is super nice and kind of brings those ideas together whatever we're doing. But I think for me it also helped of like what my personality is and how that impacts the situation.
mm,
So for me on the like on a sporting field, for example, there's many different personalities in the heart of a moment. What does that look like when it comes down to it, and how does that impact my teammates? Whether again in the office or on the playing field, it doesn't
right.
matter.
Right.
I would even see in your personal life too. Like it's
Yep.
just you don't realize at a family gathering what that looks like, how that impacts others. Like you don't think about that stuff until it is brought to your attention essentially, and you're like, oh, like this is really important and this is how it looks. And so I think learning that stuff and learning that like reasoning behind why that was just
Yep.
super helpful and like again gave clarity of like what was actually happening versus like,
Yep.
oh, I think this is happening, but why is this happening?
Totally. Well, and you're explaining such a great point that the our ability to see our patterns gives us so much empathy for
Mhm.
seeing other people's patterns because we're just different. And it isn't, it takes the right and wrong out of it.
Well, and I think it's also too that you understand why you're different or how you're different. I
Hmm.
think that like everyone is different, even with like wedding and brand photography, I photograph so many different people and making them
Hmm.
feel comfortable in front of the camera is coming down to being personable with them and
Yep.
talking to them and understanding them as people and the core of who they
Yep.
are
Yep.
really in 15 minutes. Like, yeah,
Totally.
we'll shoot for hours or sometimes even an hour depending on what we're doing, but
Yep.
you really have 15 minutes to get to know that person pretty quickly. And so I think being a number one, I think helps me in that, but also just relating to their experiences and also
Mhm.
like understanding, hey, if I'm this type, what does this mean when I'm talking to other people? So
Yes.
I think that was really helpful
Yeah.
because I'm a people person. A lot of people know that. I'm a big extrovert, even though in
Mhm.
COVID I kind of became like an introvert.
Mhm.
And so I think it was one of those things that just allowed me to like really see it come to life in a sense.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a good explanation of like you can feel your passion for people
Yeah.
and what really makes you come alive. I think that's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, what would you say? We've kind of covered this a little bit. What would you say gives you energy when you're in work, at work,
Mm.
and what drains your energy?
Yeah. So what gets me going is all the creative stuff.
Mm,
So whether it's like from a marketing strategy, marketing research, talking to people, anything that really builds something and then putting that creative together. So
mm,
it could be some days I love blocking my days as a marketing strategy day or planning day
mhm,
where
mhm,
we're planning briefs, we're making briefs,
mhm,
we're seeing what the big picture is. Like right now, in our office, we're really trying to see that big picture for the next
mhm.
year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever that is.
Yep.
And even from a business standpoint with photography, what does that look like from a 5 year standpoint?
Yep.
And so I think that it realized like what that big planning looks like and why I love that so much, but then
Mhm.
also what does that creative look like and how do I bring
Yes.
that to life?
Yeah.
I'm a very creative person, so I love the strategy and stuff. I love
Yeah.
being stuck at a computer for a day, but if I can go out in the field, like when I do a media day at work, it is like by the end of the day, I'm drained, but I'm drained
Sure.
in like the best way because I'm
Sure.
talking to people and like
Yep.
engaging with them. On the flip side, what drains me, I would say, is like just when things take a long time to get going. So whether that can be like a really small task or just feeling kind of scattered when things feel scattered.
Hmm.
So if it's like a day where there's like a lot of little stuff going on and you really just have to like check off a to-do list instead of planning a big project, I don't feel it more necessarily draining. I just find it more of like, oh, this is like kind of crappy. So it's like one of those things that's like
Right.
a toss, but you do have to obviously do that stuff because it's a part of what you do.
Well, I think you're really hitting on two important points. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, eights, nines, and ones are considered body types, and they're very action oriented. So
Yeah.
there's something in us that says, okay, I have an idea. Let's do the idea now. We don't want to
Yeah.
plan the idea forever. We want to like get going. And so sometimes that comes in direct opposition to people who want to spend a little bit more time waiting for three or four ideas before they get
Mhm.
going. So
Mhm.
I feel the same frustration as a nine that like
Yeah.
once I have something that I want to do it. I want to get going.
Well, and it's also funny too because sometimes it just takes time for things to get going. Like a
Mhm.
great example is in marketing research. It takes time to
Right.
do your research and to see
Yeah.
who you're serving.
Yeah.
At the university, as much as we're serving students, students change their behaviors every single year.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
as now we go into 25 and 26, there's new students coming in that will have different behaviors than those students in year 4, year 5 going
Right.
out into grad studies, if they go into grad studies, whatever their
Right.
journeys are. And so I think really taking the time to understand that takes time.
Yes.
But that is also why I love about it is because
Right.
it takes the time of that bigger picture, but you're still
Yes.
doing it.
Yeah.
My favorite days, honestly, in any office is when I can just check off a bunch of stuff, like when I can just knock them off, right?
Totally.
Which is no surprise, I think, as someone. But
Not surprising.
yeah, and so like when I can go to a coffee shop with my friends and just knock out like a wedding gallery,
Right.
oh, I'm the happiest person on the planet.
Absolutely. Well,
Um,
that's another great point about ones, right? You guys are sometimes they're called like part of the competency triad. So they like following rules, they like getting things done, they like things structured. So a day that can be all of those things, of course, that's a great day for a one.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it's also too that like you can mix that in with what you're doing, right? So I know for me, I get the biggest fulfillment in work when I check off an item where I see something come to life.
Yeah.
Like when I see a big event that our event manager's been planning that I have helped market and kind of bring
Right.
to life. That's one thing.
Yeah.
From an athletic standpoint, it's when you're prepping for a big tournament. Like when you're like a week out from a big tournament and your nerves are starting to go, like it is
Right.
super exciting, but it's also like, okay, like now I just have to let my body literally do what I've trained it to do for all this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's it's really similar actually in office and athletics and marketing and all
Mhm.
that stuff because they're so similar. And it's funny because I don't think people understand that they're that similar
Mhm.
until they hear something or a story like mine where it's like, how do those connect
Right.
in like being a number one? And it's like, well, this is how it actually does that.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. That's so interesting. And I mean, it's so helpful for any leader who is leading a one to gather some of that. You've given so many practical examples of what really brings energy into an Enneagram one's workspace.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's something that you know about yourself now that you wish you had known earlier?
Mm. Oh man, I'm like thinking like 10-year-old Marissa, right?
I know.
Kind of funny. I would say the biggest thing I learned is giving yourself grace, which is so hard.
Mhm.
Oh my, and this is I think for any person to be honest,
Yeah.
but like it is so hard when you're in the middle of a big project, something goes terribly wrong, or you're at a wedding, like I was at a wedding yesterday and everything went so smoothly.
Mm,
And then out of nowhere, one of like my camera bag just like decided not to zip up. And it was like one of those things where I was just like throw it and like we'll deal with this later because the
right.
bride and groom need my attention.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you just have to give yourself grace of, hey, this is okay, this is happening,
Mm,
move on and keep going because I think like what I've learned is that I just want everything to be perfect. And I'm
mm,
trying to like now accept of like the perfectly imperfect
yeah.
because I can't expect myself to be perfect when not everyone else is perfect, right? And so I think that's kind of where the grace came in, and that even with sports, especially, I would say so many situations where it's on you to
Hmm.
perform or to make a shot or cheer on a teammate or whatever it is, and that when something doesn't go right,
Mm,
it sucks. Like it's
yeah,
not nice. It's not fun.
totally.
It's not glamorous. But
Yes.
giving that grace is really hard. Like recently, I lost a golf tournament literally on hole 18 and I did it to myself. And so it was one of those things where you have to swallow it and swallow your pride, but also be like,
Right.
you know what? I'm going to be okay. And I think it's actually funny that I say that too, because our Team Canada coach literally says to us, hey, no matter the result, you're going to be okay. And
Mm,
I think it's one of those things that you don't realize that in the heart of the moments,
yeah.
but giving yourself grace allows you to like feel that as well.
Yes.
So I never really thought of it like that until we met. But then also when my Team Canada coach pulled me aside, and he's like, "Hey, like you're gonna be okay. Like it's all good."
Mhm.
So
Well, it sounds like you have really good people that like really
yeah,
understand that around
yeah,
you. And I'm so happy you brought this piece up because this is something that I think people really need to know about ones is that
mm,
they are always harder on themselves than anything that you can see. And
yeah,
so when you're going into, let's say, a feedback conversation or any type of conversation where it might feel like you're giving something negative to a one, you have to just be so aware that ones
hmm.
are constantly telling themselves where they could improve and what they could do differently, and to show them how to give themselves grace when they can't all the time.
Well, and I think you nailed it on the head because there's so many times where my coaches have come up to me, obviously more in sports, just because that's where I think this more applies for me is that you are just so hard on yourself, especially in individual sports. Like bowling and golf are very much more individual sports than anything.
Mhm.
And it is so hard to kind of let yourself go and just let yourself have a moment.
Yeah.
Um, I would say being on Team Canada and being in a small place like Winnipeg, not really small, but small comparison to like other cities in Ontario and that we have teammates from. It's kind of that pressure scenario in a sense because a lot of people are just expecting you
Mhm.
to be on that level all the time,
Yep.
to be
Yep.
like not the performer, but the person everyone looks to. And I think that kind
Yep.
of holds that expectation that you just expect yourself to be perfect. And that's just very unreasonable. Like I actually got into coaching this past year, and it's funny because the other day I remember like in June we went to, or in May we went to Montreal, or I shouldn't say Montreal, it's Quebec City for some children's nationals. It's called CYCs, and I really was telling kids like, you're gonna be okay. Give
Mhm.
yourself grace. It's okay. Like you're okay. And when
Mhm.
I was in my golf scenario like a month ago, I had to actually tell myself what I was telling kids because like you don't really realize that until you're in the heart of those situations. And I think, yeah, realizing my number, but also just realizing how that looks in all these different
Yep.
situations. It's probably one of the most more eye-opening things, to be honest with you,
Mhm.
because you don't really know where that expectation comes from until you understand truly where it comes from inside
Mhm.
of you or just like as you are as a person,
Yep.
and how you interact with people
Yep.
too.
Well, and a good reminder for all of us that we just really only know the information that somebody tells us. We have no idea what else is brewing behind the scenes. And
Mhm.
so we need to be so kind to ourselves and to the people around us because we don't know what other voices are in their head telling them all the ways that they've messed up in this scenario. Yeah.
100%. In 2015, I've actually told this story quite a bit, but I was about to give up bowling in 2015. I was ready to put the shoes away and say, okay, like I think this is enough. I want to do something else. And at that same moment is when a new coach came in. My previous coach was stepping into retirement, very well deserved.
Mhm.
And my new coach came in and he was like, hey, you probably don't realize you do this, but like you are so much harder on yourself than anyone else in this entire bowling alley. And I
Yep.
was like, oh, like what? Like, what do you mean? And so from that day on, like he has been by my side and
Yep.
I literally call him a mental coach. Like he is the first guy that I rant to in anything because he just knows what's going through my head in any athletic
Yep.
scenario.
Yep.
He doesn't even have to be there. He can just see a scorecard and know what's going on,
Totally.
which I think a lot of people need that in their lives. Athlete or not, like I'm very lucky to have him, but also many people like that by my side who just
Yep.
know what's happening, how it's gonna look, how I'm feeling without even like I could be in Peru for a PAPCON championships for bowling and he'll know exactly what I'm feeling, which
Mm,
is says a lot, I think, about when you let people into your lives and really let them
absolutely.
into what you're feeling and how you're feeling something and why you
Yeah.
feel something and just let them into your story. Like I know for me in that 2015 moment, I was so scared to like be vulnerable after that point because no
Right.
one knew what I was going through except for him and like a couple other people.
Yep.
Um, and I think that once like he knew and then we like started working together and saw that growth mentally over like that 5, 10 year span, it proves a lot, but it also shows like, hey, like you can do hard things, but you also need the people there to back you up too.
Absolutely. Well, and you're also giving us a window into the fact that both work and sports aren't about the actual things you're doing all the time. There's such a mental and emotional and relational game behind the scenes that
Hmm.
if you don't start looking at some of those pieces and gain a bit of self-awareness on, what else is going on for you, it makes the work harder. Bowling is harder when you don't realize how hard you're being on
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny because when I'm talking to non-bowlers, they're like, "Oh, you just like throw a ball down the lane, right?"
Well, that's how the average person does it.
That's the
And that's
average. Yes, I should say that's probably the average person, not just a non-bowler. But and it's funny because I was on like another like podcast and talking with another I think it was called 204 Rise, and they were asking me like, how do you bowl? Like, what's the technical factors of it? And I was like, it is so hard to explain something that you know pretty well or fairly well
Yep.
to someone who maybe has never done it in their
Right.
lives. And so I think being a one, it's actually sometimes taking that step back and seeing, okay, what is this person thinking and what is
Mhm.
my experience and how do I connect my experience with what they're doing
Right,
without kind of overpowering or giving them too much information.
right,
So when I was coaching in May, I like had a lot of information in my head, but I knew all of these kids could not handle all of that information if I gave it to them.
right.
And so that was like one thing I learned just personally was like these kids can only handle so much at once.
Mhm.
Um, one of the kids was having a really hard time. I think was about to just have a full panic attack, and
Mhm.
it was one of my first scenarios where I was like, I cannot like just do what I would do and take myself to the side and have a moment. I need to sit with this
Right,
person
right.
and make sure they're okay, but also in the most calming sense that I like humanly can, which
Yeah.
when you're in the heart of it, that is very hard to do. And so, again, being a one, I think that just it stretches you in very different ways.
Yeah.
And that was one way I was not expecting, but I think I handled it pretty well, and the kid was happy in the end. So I think I
For
did
you.
okay.
Well, and I think you're actually explaining so a one is positioned between a nine and a two, and nines are very prone to seeing things from other people's perspectives,
Hmm.
and twos are very caring. So it
Yeah.
actually seems like you've kind of broadened your personality and you've kind of brought in those additional aspects because you're able to see what needs to happen. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also, I mean, it also just comes from experiences too. Like you don't just, doesn't just happen. You kind of have to
Yes.
just put yourself in those experiences. But
Yes.
yeah, it was
I
fun.
agree. Thank you for sharing all those stories. That's so good to hear from your personal
Hmm.
experience. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay, we've come to our last question. What
Mm.
is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is wired like you?
Ooh. I would say the biggest thing is block time for yourself and be okay with blocking time for yourself. It is so easy for me to fill up a calendar. I
Mhm.
can fill up a calendar no problem, even if it's with stuff that has no deadline, is not work related, is family and friends related, or just even for me, but block time just for you to do nothing,
Mhm.
um, and be okay with that. And I would actually add like a second piece of advice of like really take a good look of who you surround yourself by,
Mhm.
because that will really impact your daily behavior and even like your long-term goals and what you're doing as a person.
Yeah.
Um, I know for me, like I love my support system and I talk about them quite a bit actually, but I try and talk about them every time I chance I get because like you can compete. I can be a marketer and be a photographer and be a wife and all of these things, but really it comes back to the people that I have when I'm coming home from these things and when I'm connecting and
Mhm.
in the business world and who we are connecting with there too. Like there's so many different people that impact what you're doing. And so just making sure like you're surrounding yourself with the right people for your personality and like who you are as a person. Um, because like I always, my husband actually tells me this quite a bit, is like the first 5 people or 10 people you surround yourself by is not who you're going to become, but a really impact of who you are as a person.
Okay.
So I think that really understanding that and just clocking in almost of like, okay, like, is there anything that I want to change of my life right now? Or what does this look like moving forward? And just really like taking a good look at it because I think sometimes we get so caught up in life that we forget. And we forget to take time for ourselves. Like I'm again very prone to that. My time on the golf course is my time, which really isn't my time just
Right.
because I'm probably prepping for a tournament or having like fun with a colleague, but like, is there any time that I personally need? And everyone that's different, like everyone has a different way of doing that.
Yeah.
But I think realizing that was probably the big thing. So those would be like my 2 pieces of advice to
I love that. I love that. And that probably speaks to little Marissa, little 10-year-old
Mm.
Marissa too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think that's also one thing I learned is the expectations you have as a kid and that you don't realize those expectations until you grow older, until you kind of realize, okay, are those expectations something I want, or is this something I
Mhm.
need, or is this something that was just kind of put on me indirectly that you didn't really expect.
Mhm.
And I know for me, I've always been very sporty. I've always been into the sports. I've always been into athletics. I've always loved people. I've picked up a camera 10 years ago, almost to the day, and started my business.
Mhm.
And so I think that it's one of those things that you just kind of go with the flow. But then as you get older, kind of just checking in with yourself of like, hey, like, am I on the right path? So it's kind of funny because every wedding anniversary. So my husband and I just celebrated our first anniversary, but it's kind of making our first anniversary like that checkpoint too of like, okay, like a goal setting of like, okay, where are we at and where do we want to go? And I know as a one or as just my personality, that's something I really need because I'm very big picture. I want to see like the road ahead of me. It's kind of funny at sip sessions this past week was someone said that of like it's actually Christine Thiessen said that. She was like, I want to see the road ahead of me of like what this looks like.
Yeah,
And so I'm like, that's exactly speaking to what I do as well because there's
yeah,
so many fast moving parts. But yeah, it's very nice to know the personality type, but also like see those expectations and where they
yeah,
come from, but also realign them to see, okay,
yep,
is this really what I want now moving
yep,
forward?
absolutely. Well, a chance to do some self-reflection, some guided self-reflection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I think you've done such a great job giving us a window into an Enneagram 1. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. It's been fun.
Good, good. Well, and good luck with your upcoming tournaments. And
Thank you.
I can't wait to speak with you again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.